We start today in Cincinnati. Bengals paying both of their star receivers. Ja'Marr Chase getting 4 years, $161 million. 5 years ago, 4 years, $160 million was a jaw-dropping Dak Prescott quarterback contract. Now it's almost enough to get Ja'Marr Chase. Wow. Tee Higgins gets 4 years, $115 million. Here's the Bengals last year. A really good, but maybe not as good an offense as those numbers don't kind of line up with how I remembered it. Like, I thought they were top three in everything offensively, 6th and 9th. And the defensive numbers are actually a little better than I thought they were, because I thought they were maybe bottom 3 in both.
They're not good, though.
Yeah. Brew, do you like these moves, locking up Higgins and Chase?
Well, look, I'm happy for the players. All right, you're always happy when guys get paid. I'm happy Ja'Marr is going to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the league for another week, probably, or whenever they sign Micah Parsons in Dallas. So good for them. The offense, one of the most dynamic offenses in the league. We get to see that intact. That's what they wanted. And they actually have some pretty decent running backs, too. I mean, they don't have a great back, but Chase Brown, Zach Moss, they brought back Samaje Perine from Kansas City. That's good enough where I think their offense will be very good. Obviously, the question is defense, and they are reportedly trying to bring back Trey Hendrickson. I would have prioritized him ahead of Tee Higgins.
Yeah.
All right, so, but here's the deal. Even if they bring him back, okay.
It's the team you had last year.
Right, and you were 25th in defense. Right. And the charge is for them to get to the Super Bowl. And here's a graphic, I think we have it, about teams that have reached the Super Bowl with the lowest ranked defenses this century. Now, it's been done. We saw they were 25th last year. Yeah. The Giants won it in 20.
Which is odd, because by the time those playoffs rolled around, that Giants defense felt really good.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's a difference in what we may see with the Bengals.
Same with that Colts with Bob Sanders, that he came on strong. But go ahead. Sorry.
So, but that's the point. And the Chiefs didn't have a great defense, but 16th is mediocre.
Yeah.
And so, to me, the question is, what are they going to do with the defense? And they haven't done a ton, obviously, in the offseason. So, I don't want to say forget. But, yeah, there's pressure on Joe Burrow. There's pressure on Zach Taylor. There's pressure on these 2 receivers that just got paid. You know who the most pressure's on?
Who?
Al Golden.
Oh,
the new defensive coordinator that came from Notre Dame. Because they are clearly expecting him to be Vic Fangio.
Yes.
Philadelphia went from 30th ranked defense in scoring to the first ranked defense in scoring in winning the Super Bowl this year. They are expecting him to take this 25th ranked defense and probably get it in the top 10 and then turn Oren Burks or somebody into Zach Bowles.
Well, that's the other, or they're also maybe asking Duke Tobin to be Howie Roseman as far as crushing the draft and do all these things. And so I just think this is a bananas way to run a team. Now, people will say, well, Philly pays Devontae, pays AJ, pays Jalen Hurts. I don't want to get too nerdy salary cap, so just please take my word for this. Philly uses void years unlike any other team in the league, and the short version of that is around 2028, 2029, Philadelphia is going to be forced into a temporary reset because
2-3 just bad.
Exactly right, which they're fine with. So as a for instance, Jalen Hurts, while he's under contract, his cap hit is never more than $45 million, and most years it's under $35 million. And then the first year's contract's expired, it's $97 million in a void year. But they're doing that saying we are going to win right now, compete. They just did. And then we don't mind if we're really bad for a couple of years, because then we get high draft picks and we keep it going again. The reason some people might be like, well, why doesn't every team do that? That costs your owner a ton of upfront cash that Jeffrey Lurie's willing to pay that almost no other owner is. And so that model is not duplicable. The model they're trying to mimic, it would appear, is Miami's model, which hasn't worked, which is highly paid quarterback, highly paid receivers, typical spending and contract structure and then work around the margins everywhere else. You have limited assets to improve your team.
Yeah.
And you mentioned just the defense. I'm going to go a step further and say I have real questions about their offensive line. So I look at it as this is a team whose offensive line is mediocre, whose defense was awful, who historically has drafted kind of league average-ish. So none of those things are the situation Philadelphia's in. And so the other thing I'll hear is it's the Peyton Manning model. 2-star receivers, quarterback. Here's the distinction. That team didn't have one Trey Hendrickson. It had two in Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis. And doing it that way, Brew, I think it's fair to say they underachieved. They
got one Super Bowl with Peyton.
The Colts had 13 years with Peyton Manning, made 2 Super Bowls, won 1 with that model. The Broncos had 4 years with a much diminished Peyton Manning, went to 2 Super Bowls, won 1. And so, and Bengals fans might be like, listen, we've never won a Super Bowl, anything. I get it. My point is, I don't think this is the best path forward for them to win a championship. And I think it operates as if Joe Burrow is not a great quarterback because I think he's a great quarterback, which means I don't think he needs the best receiver duo in the league. But what he does need is help on defense because he can't touch the field in those spots.
Well, this is how bad their defense was. Their record, and we have the graphic, when they scored 33 or more points, they were 3-4.
Wow.
When the rest of the NFL scored 33 or more points, you see 79-7. The Bengals were the first team in the history of the league to lose 4 games when they scored 33 or more points.
Yeah.
So, look, they're dangerous. They're scary. I do think they'll be better than last year. But I know you think there's a lot of pressure on Burrow, and I agree. The pressure really is you cannot have these slow starts.
Yes.
Because even last year, with that bad defense, if they don't start 0-2, then they're going to make the playoffs. 4 of his 5 years in the league, they've started 0-2. Last year was 0-3. And so if they can avoid the slow start, if they can get in the playoffs, they're still scary for the Chiefs.
Well,
probably
they're scary
the
for
team
everybody.
in the AFC
I
for
just
the Chiefs.
don't. And I want to be fair here because I thought they were going to lose Tee Higgins. But I think that you have to at times make the hard decisions, which is recognize, yes, this is a great duo. But what would our passing game without Tee Higgins, what is it going to be? What's the floor with healthy
It was still going to be great.
An A-, you know what I mean? And then
I totally
and then use those assets to then improve other parts of your team.
with you on that.
All right, moving on to hoops. Luka dropped a humble 33-11-8 in a win over the Suns last night. He's been on fire since LeBron was sidelined with his groin injury. And honestly, dating back before that, here's Luka's numbers the last 8 games. You know what that looks like? Vintage Luka Doncic. Except the field goal percentage is a little lower than normal and three-point percentage a little higher than normal. But 32-8-8 sounds amazing, but it's almost amazingly his career averages. Second in scoring only to Shea in this time frame. Brew, you and I both said that maybe a silver lining of LeBron's injury could be Luka takes more control of the team. Do you feel like Luka is officially back to his old self?
Yeah, for the most part, meaning I actually think he can play better. Like you said, his field goal percentage is a little lower than usual. But the fact that he's shooting 41% from 3, that shows that his legs are back. Like now he's back in shape. That's what, the 3-point percentage shows, and that's critical. So the silver lining, I thought, was the guy, he could fully take control of the offense without LeBron there. And LeBron clearly backed off and said, look, I'll just be a scorer, rebounder. I'm going to get my 7 assists because of just how smart I am and the way I play. So I like that the other guys, even though they're still without a few other starters, but I like that the other guys are really getting a chance to play off Luka and learn how he plays and what's the best way to play off him. Exhibit A being Austin Reeves. Man. Austin Reeves is going off. I don't know if I have a graphic for his numbers. If I do throw it up, but 31 points, 7 assists in the last 3 games. And he was a guy that was struggling. It is possible that had LeBron still been playing, which I wouldn't say is a bad thing, obviously, but that Reeves, you know, with LeBron doing his thing, with Luka doing his thing, maybe Reeves doesn't come out of that slump as quickly as he has. And so that could be another silver lining. So, yeah, I think Luka is rounding into form, and the Lakers going to be better for it because LeBron can clearly just fit right in.
So I think this was a great weekend for the Lakers. I think there are very few moral victories in professional sports. The Friday night game against Denver counts as one.
That was
where they were without LeBron, Luka, Rui, Jackson Hayes, Dorian Finney-Smith, Gabe Vincent. So 6 of their top 8 or 9 guys were gone. Denver is essentially full strength. And, I mean, Bronny played 16 minutes in that game. And that's not a shot at Bronny. That's how bereft of folks they were. And, by the way, shout out Bronny, +8 in those 16 minutes. They didn't get run off the court. And they're up 3 with a minute left. It would have been great to get the win, but since Denver's been such a boogeyman for them to play them, you know what I mean, toe-to-toe.
They beat Denver.
Right, and they beat Denver earlier. Then you have this awesome Luka game against the Suns. Austin Reeves, is, as you mentioned, and the LeBron news, which is LeBron should be back in a week. You saw, first of all, he warmed up. He also got some calisthenics in at Bryce's state championship game, jumping on the sideline.
He looked fine.
He looks fine. And so, and the West is so odd standings-wise, which is Houston's now the 2 seed. It's Houston, Memphis, Denver, the Lakers. They all have 25 losses. And so, the Lakers have not gotten killed in the standings in this stretch, even though they lost 4 in a row. And I just think that if we are getting healthy peak Luka, by we I mean basketball public, the Lakers are as dangerous as any team in the league.
No question, no question. And I would say, look, it was a great performance by the Lakers. I would say it was like an immoral victory for Denver.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's bad. And then they go and lose to Washington. You are in the fight for seeding, and you lose. You barely beat the Lakers, who have nobody.
And that should have
playing,
been your wake-up call to take Washington
seriously. Yeah, exactly. So they got some issues in Denver. I'm not completely writing them off, but they have some issues, and we'll get to that later. But for the Lakers, look, they could theoretically even fall to 6th. But if I'm the Lakers, at this point, you cannot care about seeding. It is all about getting healthy. And if they're healthy, like you said, I like their chances against anyone. You and I both have them winning the West. But it's just you can't look at who do we match up with, because it's too tight.
And there's
just
no way to
get
determine who you would play.
It's too tight.
In a weird way, there's a scenario where depending on how the bracket falls, where you would prefer to be the 6th than to be the 5, depending on, you know what I mean?
You would avoid OKC.
Well, who knows?
And I'll tell you what, I think they're the most dangerous threat to OKC in the West. I just think their experience against OKC's youth, I don't think that's a good matchup for OKC.
One other thing, because we're going to get to OKC in just a second. So Jackson Hayes came back and instantly, he has, 10 points minutes into the game.
Yeah.
When you're looking at the Lakers past this year, if I am a young, maybe underachieving, but talented, haven't been paid yet, made big money, big man, that's the guy I want to play with. Because, listen, I think Derek Lively's a good player, but Derek Lively looked like an awesome player as a rookie. With
Daniel Gafford.
Daniel Gafford.
How good? Who was thinking about him in Washington?
Correct. And now Jackson Hayes.
I liked Hayes when they picked him up. I expected more from him.
But that's my point. Like, he was a lottery pick who had been underachieving. Like, you saw, he's this sick athlete. But if it's just catching lobs from Luka, you're going to have good numbers. You're going to be yes. All right, let's go to OKC real quick. We're ending with Thunder and Bucks. OKC, 121-105 win. Another 31 from, at this point, I think it's almost inevitable MVP, given what's happened to Denver over the weekend. SGA. Thunder are now, this is unbelievable, Brew. They're 13 up on the 2 seed with 14 to play. So they could lock up the 1 seed, this week.
Yeah.
Brew, you've been skeptical of the Thunder due to your just general mistrust of young people, is like what I would put it. Are you
Dusty the graphic?
No, are you starting to believe?
Well, let me. I really like OKC.
Yes.
I really respect them. I think they're playing great basketball, and they're a great team. Offensively, they're one of the best in the league. Defensively, they're one of the best in the league. They're deep. They do it all. And I'm going to say this. SGA, who will win the MVP, he's going to get my vote. If he were more dynamic not dynamic, high flying.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say athletic.
Yeah. If he were more high, like if he had the high flying game of Ja Morant or Anthony Edwards,
yep.
People would be, and I'm not putting him in this class, but they would be comparing him to Michael Jordan. They would be, because what he's doing, the 33 points or 32, 33 points a game, the assists, the rebounds, the defense, and, I like this, he's doing it in the mid-range. And so he's playing a lot like Jordan without all the high-flying dunks and stuff. But people, if you just watch him, he's playing like that. And I've even compared him, the way he's bringing Jalen Williams along is kind of like Jordan did with Scottie
Can I
Pippen.
give you a comp that maybe won't make people's eyes pop out like Jordan? If he were a little more high-flying, he plays a lot like young Dwayne Wade, who, by the way, won a championship. D. Wade was not a big three-point shooter. He was in the mid-range. Great
he's
defense.
He's a better shooter
He's
than
a better,
D. Wade,
but you understand what I mean? Like
yeah.
Young player, won a championship, great defensively. It is hard to find a comp for him because historically, most of the best 2 guards ever have been just better raw athletes than him. Even Harden, who does a lot of the foul stuff that SGA has gotten great at, Harden, up until really he went to the Nets, was more of a threat to dunk on you, even in Houston, than SGA.
And he can, it's just not.
No, and I'm not knocking him for it. It's just as far as the comp.
But here's where
yes,
I do like the comparison to Wade is he's got the ball in his hands. He's essentially playing point, which Wade did until LeBron got there. So I do like that. Look, I just think I like them a lot. I just don't like them enough to say they're going to become the youngest team in NBA history to win the championship or even reach the finals. I won't be surprised. I will not be surprised. But when I look at Golden State with their experience and the way they're playing now, and then the Lakers, it would be two superstars, LeBron and Luka, against one. And I just think that's going to be a tough for OKC to overcome.
So I understand all of that, and obviously, I'm with you on the Lakers side of it. Where OKC, just to use this specific game as an example of how tough they are, their defense shut down every buck but Giannis. And that's what they're going to be able to do. Yeah. Like they just have waves, and now especially that Caruso's back. I know Jalen Williams still not back, but still, just waves of guys to throw at you. They don't have really a guy who plays big minutes that you can switch hunt. You know what I mean? That you in a playoff series that you can target. And
that's what makes them one of the things that makes them so dangerous.
And every other team that's a real contender, except for maybe Boston, has someone that you're like, okay, let's try to get him in a switch. Let's try to get him matched up in a playoff series that's going to matter. But the thing that was shocking to me about this specific game, you're playing Milwaukee, which is long and veteran, and so, with Brook and Giannis both playing. And Chet and Hartenstein combine for a 40-20. Like, that wasn't, of all the teams that are supposed to, have
enough size,
to be able to match up. Now, the counter to that is, if we show you OKC's record against the best teams in the West, it's not just the best teams in the West, but they're 50-3 against everyone except dead even against the Nuggets, dead even against the Timberwolves, losing record to the Warriors. The Mavs thing to me is noteworthy because that's a Luka stat. not a Mavs stat. They played the Lakers once this year. They're 1-0 against them. So the reason I mention that is the teams they could be matching up with early in the Western Conference playoffs are teams that are going to look at them and like, oh, okay, you haven't owned us. You know what I mean? Like, we've got a shot.
In fact, we've owned you.
Right.
And you mentioned that Luka stat. Here's another stat for you, and obviously the Lakers were a different team. Lakers were 3-1 against them last year. Right. Now, that's with AD, I get it, but the Lakers are better. They're different, but we think they're better. They're 0-1 against OKC this year, but 3-1 in the last 4 games against OKC. They clearly aren't going to be
I just think that the Lakers feel like we had success against you last year. Luka's like, I knocked you out in the playoffs last year, and I had success against you. So there's certainly not going to be a mental edge for OKC, but, man, they are a legit 10 deep, good everywhere, have the league MVP, and great defensively. That is the profile of a lot of champions. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.